Hey everyone, it's Lisa Danforth, and I am so excited to have Julie Goodall from Genesis Consulting here. Julie is a dear friend. She's a colleague. We met at a networking event, have just been connecting ever since. Julie is going to be talking about wearing all of those different hats and how we can start taking some of those off as a business owner so we can start focusing on what we went into business for in the first place. So I'm going to share a little bit about Julie, and then we're just going to jump right in. Julie is, several people have actually dubbed her the entrepreneurial therapist, which we're going to get into because that I just find so fascinating. She's a virtual CFO and a full service finance department. She can go from A to Z, whatever you're looking for. And while most people dread the accounting, planning, and the strategizing that's necessary, that sees it as a necessary evil, Julie puts her OCD to good use. I love that. Making sure everything is reconciled and color coded so owners can focus on the reason they got into business in the first place. She specializes in mastering the parts people enjoy, leaving them. Listen to me, I'm bumbling here. Leaving them free to focus on their dream. And Julie, I love this one. Julie dreams of a world where the little guy or little gal succeeds, houses stay clean, and calories don't count. I thought that was brilliant. Very sweet. So thank you, Julie, for joining us. I really appreciate it today. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Thanks for having me, Lisa. You covered a bunch of it. So I am a 3-time entrepreneur, glutton for punishment, apparently, and mother of 3. Vermonter, born and raised, and got started with my love of numbers probably about 25 years ago, not to date myself, but started Genesis about 6 years ago. So,
and how did you get into all of this?
So my first business was actually a gym. I like to say that, after having a baby, normal people, join Weight Watchers or some program and they lose some pounds. I needed to take that to the nth degree. And so I became a personal trainer and lost all the weight and got in shape. And people, would start asking what I was doing. And before I knew it, I was doing personal training out of my living room. And a couple of my clients said, you should really open a gym. And I was like, well, that takes money. And I got to thinking, because once you plant the seed, of course. So I met with a banker who was very kind, but very straightforward. And she said, nobody will ever lend to you because you are young, you're female, and you're uneducated, meaning I didn't have a degree.
And you're probably like, oh, just watch me.
I was going to say, so anybody who knows me, the most motivating thing you can tell me is that I can't do something. So I wrote up a business plan and did all my due diligence and all through bootstrapping. But less than a year later, 2 days before my 30th birthday, I opened a gym and it was amazing. And I would say that that's where I got my sincere and wholehearted appreciation for entrepreneurs. I was wearing all the hats. I was getting there at 4 a.m. to open at 5, and I was staying till 9 at night, and I was doing all the personal training, all the marketing, and, putting the systems into place, and, being customer service and billing and cleaning toilets before I left, and then doing it all again the next day, 7 days a week. So obviously burnt out just under 2 years. And swore that I would never, ever own a business again. And
here we are.
I was going to say, and less than 2 years later, I opened my second business, this time with a partner, because it seems like if you share the joy and the work, that it would be easier. And it was during that partnership, my partner brought in a lawyer to do a buy-sell agreement. And he introduced me to this lawyer, and he said, Mark, this is Julie. Julie's my right arm. And without missing a beat, this lawyer said, well, I need a right arm. Where do I get a right arm? And so I met with him later. I still work with him to this day. And I started doing things for him. I did the bookkeeping. He was fantastic at his one thing, but not quite as fantastic about billing for that one thing. And that's not a great way to run a business. You kind of need the money. And then he asked me one day, he's like, what else can you do? And so we just started doing all of these other things, and he started taking hats off and I started putting them on. And
I love that image.
Yeah. And he he introduced me to a bunch of his clients who are also entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and he would do the same thing. He'd say, "This is Julie. She's my right arm. I know that, per our last conversation, you need a right arm." And I did that for a while. It let me stay home with my second baby and be a stay-at-home mom and kind of do it as a side hustle for a while. And then one day the opportunities were coming in faster than I could manage. And I just, I took the leap and I said, I'm going to try to do this full time, and never looked back. So,
and I want to give a shout out to James Tucker, who is often on with us. Thank you. And Rhonda Burns. And we also have K-Pain. Got a lot of people here. So thanks so much for joining us, everyone. I really appreciate it. If any of you have some questions for Julie, please pop them in. She can answer just about anything when it comes to CFO, bookkeeping, all of that. She's brilliant.
Do my best.
Yeah. So what was the I should say biggest sort of hurdle that you were approaching to get into this business full time?
Practicing what I preach. So wearing all the hats and then trying to wear everyone else's hats, which, as most of you with one head knows, it's really hard to wear all the hats. And as somebody who is a bit of a control freak, which makes me makes me pretty good at what I do, because I keep all those balls in the air, those plates in the air, as Lisa says, and knowing when to outsource myself and get the help that I need to take on more and serve more people was a challenge.
So taking that a little bit further, what is the struggle that most people come to you with, that they're like, okay, I need to take this hat off? How would you determine that?
So most people come to me with feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, and like there just aren't enough hours in the day. And a little bit of frustration and maybe sadness, because, most of us got into business to do something that we love, something that we are really passionate about, hopefully, and just uniquely skilled at. And that's why we started this whole thing. And then as time goes on, the busier you get, you spend less and less of your time doing the thing that you love, the reason you got into business, because as you grow, you're finding, well, now you have to invoice your clients and you have to have some system to keep it all straight, maybe a CRM or something, and you have to respond to all those people. So you're doing email and you're doing your social media and you have all these questions and you're meeting with people and you're networking, and before you know it, 10-20% of your time is now spent doing the thing that you love. And so that's usually where I meet people. And I think that's what I love the most, is because I've been there. So I can speak to it. And, if anybody listening is an entrepreneur, it can be really isolating and really lonely because you are doing all the things. And a lot of times that means working in an office by yourself, and you are your own resource, or, you might email people. And so communicating with somebody who truly understands those feelings of overwhelm and the reluctance to let those things go and trust somebody else to do it, especially when it's anything client facing, it's really, really tough. There's a huge, huge trust element to it and understanding. And when I meet with people, a big part of what I do for the first couple sessions is just listen, to hear, what are your pain points? Where are you at in your business? What are your struggles? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And then tell them honestly if there are pieces or things that I can do to help them get there, take things off their plate, so that they can get more of their time back. And my absolute favorite thing is when they just do this big sigh after, like they're finally heard and understood and it's all going to be okay. And that right there, I would never stop doing. I love that piece of it.
I want to give a shout out to Emma, but I also just want to say that Kate is on here. She said, Julie is my CFO and she couldn't be in better hands. Just a big shout out. And I will say that Kate just sings your praises. So
Kate is amazing to work with. So
she is. She's phenomenal. She's been on here as well. Really super, super talented.
Absolutely.
I would like to know, for someone who's reluctant, because I find that, I need to hand something off. And I will say this is one of the first things that I recommend to my clients to start handing off, because often, like you said, we go into business for something that we love, and the bookkeeping things, every kind of go into a shoebox and then we circle back around. How do you invite people forward, those ones that are really reluctant, so that they can experience taking off a couple of hats?
I think the most impactful conversation I have with those folks, and I do this with myself all the time when I'm reluctant to hand things off, is most of the time it's one of two reasons, and part of the process is getting to the reason behind it. But one of them is usually money. It's, I can't afford somebody to do that for me. I can't afford to pay for that. And the other is, like I said, the trust thing. These are my clients, my people. I don't want anybody else communicating with them in a way other than I would. And so that's the piece that's actually harder than the money is, developing that level of trust with them so that they know this is how I communicate, and making sure we're on the same page and that I care for your clients at the level that you would. The money thing is a little easier in that the conversation is, if you're doing something outside of your genius zone, even though you're doing it and you're probably doing it fine, it might take you, let's say, 3 hours to do your books each month. It takes you 3 hours. And I always ask them, what is your hourly billing rate? So if you bill at, even for round numbers, you bill $100 an hour for your services, and doing your books takes you 3 hours, it doesn't cost you anything. You're not writing a check, but it's $300 worth of your time. And I can assure you, I don't bill $100 an hour, and I can probably do it in significantly less time. And because it is my genius zone, it'll be right. It'll be right. I will catch things that you might not catch just because it's not your area of expertise. I work with a few folks that they actually really like doing their books, and I suggest, having a handle on it and being intimately familiar with your finances and understanding your reports every month. But that doesn't mean that you have to be categorizing transactions or even paying the bills. You can still know your finances, and not do the daily minutia.
Well, you can pull up your P&L and your balance sheet in a heartbeat and really know.
Exactly.
What I really heard you say is when an entrepreneur, business owner starts to take off the hat and inviting someone in to help them, they're saving time, and in the long run, saving money, because they're not spending hours on something that, that would take you possibly an hour. And that is such a highlighted thing that we get stuck in.
And the struggle, don't struggle with it. If you're, not only time and money, but the frustration of pounding your head against the wall if you don't understand something or how to do it, what is the value of just offloading that to somebody who loves doing it?
Priceless.
I think so, but.
So what are some questions that you would recommend to a business owner or someone that is looking to interview? They're a little uncomfortable, they're a little reluctant. What are some questions that they could ask to help make sure that they feel comfortable with handing off their money? I mean, it's really sort of getting naked, right? When we're handing someone our checkbook.
Absolutely. I think it's all about expectations. And so making sure that the person that you're handing it off to understands exactly what you want, how you want it done, the timing of everything, and check references. This is, people do it when they're hiring, as an employee, but absolutely, if you're going to hire a subcontractor of any kind, I mean, not just finance, but especially finance, just because it is kind of a big deal and they have access to things, check references, make sure that you feel really solid with that, because in the end, if you don't, you may not spend the time doing those things, but you're still going to have that mental space, stressing about whether they're doing the things that you're asking them to do. And so just really getting to know them. And if that person doesn't have time to get to know you and give you clear expectations, then it might not be the right connection.
Well said. Definitely. Excuse me. So asking the questions and gaining clarity, backing up a little bit, how many hours would someone, just a solopreneur particularly need with help with their books, just to give someone a range?
Yeah, it really depends. I have some solopreneurs, their business is very, very small, literally 2 hours a month. I mean, I have probably half of my clients are about 2 hours a month. And in that time, we can do a lot for them. I mean, we can take over a lot of things. And one of the things that, obviously I don't work with a ton of bookkeepers myself because I am one, but one of the things that I think is pretty special about us is I tell people, if you've worked with me before, you've heard me say this probably too many times, I will be as much or as little as you need, meaning there is no rigid plan. I don't believe that everybody fits in a box and you get package A, package B, or package C. I think that you need to get to know the person, figure out what they want. And it's like an a la carte thing, you know? So if you are feeling reluctant, but you are good with view only stuff, so you're like, yep, you can categorize my transactions every month and give me reports, then that's where we start. And what happens with most people that I work with is they start with something fairly benign that they just don't like doing or they don't really know how to do, but they maintain paying their own bills and invoicing their own clients and following up on payments. And then eventually I find that they're like, well, can you pay my bills? And I'm like, yeah. So then we kind of take over that, you know, and it's a level of trust. And I honor that. And, you know, I acknowledge that it's not a little thing to give me access to your account so that I can pay your bills. That's a big deal. So we do that. And then eventually they're like, well, can you bill my clients and follow up? And absolutely. And most of the time, that's the one they like the most, because doing any kind of collections, even soft collections, it lets you maintain the relationship with the client and not be the bad guy. You know, you can, oh boy, my bookkeeper, you know, she's really on that stuff, you know, 31 days. And not that we're, you know, aggressive about it by any means, but it lets them kind of take that hat off and just be the nice guy and not do the collections, which a lot of people like. So.
Right. They're more than happy to hand that one off. I just want to pop this one back up from Nan. She said, also doing your books when you hate it drains you of your genius energy. Spot on, Nan. That is absolutely it. Because it's often, I don't know about anyone else, but when there's something that I don't want to do and I'm avoiding it, which is what I work on with my clients, right? But I avoid something, the weight of it that I keep carrying along each week or each month of, oh man, I need to balance my checkbook, that it's taken the energy away from my brilliance and the work that I do. So thank you, Nan, for mentioning that. I really appreciate it. Question. So someone is thinking, gosh, I really think that I'd like to start handing a few things off. Where can people start? Like, what are some things that they can start thinking about? I could hand this little piece off and this little piece off. And then you know that they're going to start, like you said, handing it all off.
Everybody's different. So I would say the thing you hate the most would be a good place to start, because you get not only your time back, but your joy, which is a huge thing. And, you know, it depends on the type of person you are. Some people don't have any issues. They're like, here's everything, take it, run, go away with it. I just don't want to see it ever again. But for everybody else, you know, picking the thing that you dislike the least, or if you do have, you know, kind of the trust issues and it is a big thing, pick something that you're comfortable with, something that, you know, you would feel okay with, and do it in baby steps. And I'm hoping there are other people out there who will do it in baby steps. It's not an all or nothing thing. You know, I would not work with somebody who said, you know, you either give us everything or it's nothing, you know, so start small.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people think it needs to be. And if someone's telling you it has to be, then it's not a good fit. Thank you for highlighting that.
No, never do the all or nothing. Do what you're comfortable with, only what you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. Because then I think it's good too. You learn in that baby step if it's a good fit or not. If it's not a good fit, then it's easy to take back because it's that one thing, or easy to add on when it is, you know, and people should be willing to work with you on that, because finances I don't think they should be, but they are so taboo. People have been taught, you know, like religion and politics, you don't talk about it. You don't talk about it with your family, your friends, sometimes your spouse, you know, so it is a big thing.
Well, isn't the number one reason, or one of the top reasons for divorce, money?
Yep, absolutely.
Right? So
add saving marriages to my resume.
Right. What did you say? You're an entrepreneurial therapist. I think you could definitely go deep in that. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I've heard several people she's the entrepreneurial therapist. There's so much more to that. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. You know, so one of the things I always assume that whatever I do is the norm. And actually it might've been Kate Payne that mentioned this to me when we were chatting, that, you know, being compassionate is not always. So sometimes when you get the people that are good with numbers, a lot of CPAs, bookkeepers, accountants, I hear this all the time. They're like, you don't seem like an accountant, because the people that are really good with numbers are often introverted. Not all of them. I don't want to make anybody mad, but they're not always, but they can be introverted, a little bit dry. And so to be able to talk to somebody about such a sensitive subject, who is empathetic and compassionate, but also truly understands entrepreneurship. So it's not just that I can do the numbers and I'm a W-2. It's like, no, this is my hustle too. So I get the hustle. I get the exhaustion. I get that with entrepreneurship, people always tell you, God, it must be nice, make your own schedule, make all this money, sleep in. It's like, must be nice to not be able to turn it off. It's never going to be a 9 to 5. Even if you don't work past 5, if you are an entrepreneur, you are laying in bed at night thinking about something that you could do, should do, would do. It doesn't leave you on
to do.
Yeah, it doesn't leave you, even the good things, even the like, oh my God, it would be great. Those things don't turn off, and so having somebody that understands that is huge. And just that it's a judgment-free zone. I mean, that's the number one thing I hear when people come in. They're like, oh my God, you're going to hate me, or you've probably never seen anything as messy as my books. And I always tell them, please, I assure you I have. You are not the most screwed up person. You're not the most behind. Because people do. By the time they get to me, they're like, well, I haven't reconciled in a year. I haven't categorized in 6 months. And what is there is probably wrong. And that's okay, because, and I tell them, if I did your job, I promise you I'd screw it up. Because the reason that we need each other is because we all have our unique, genius zone. Like if everybody was good at it, I wouldn't have a job. And I don't even pretend to do anything that my clients do. My clients are absolute rock stars. But I don't, belittle myself for not being able to do what they do, because I know that. But I think people come in and they have this shame with money. And
huge shame. I mean, it seems like it doesn't even really matter how much they're making. I find it's always someone else is making more, someone else is doing it differently. And I so appreciate you highlighting that and bringing it out for people to really, really look at. I just want to back up a moment. You said, as an entrepreneur, we're always thinking that it's never turned off. And I will say, as a 28, maybe 29 year by now, that's something else. I have so many people over the years be like, being in business for yourself is so great. You can work whatever hours you want. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, 12, until we start strategizing, until we start taking off hats and whatnot, I think. And I'd love for anyone who's watching to sort of put that in. Do you experience that as a business owner, that you are on all the time and that you would enjoy starting to take some of those hats off, to start taking things off from your plate instead of keeping all of those spinning plates up in the air? The thing is we can be selective when we have 157 plates up there, which ones we're going to set down. And when we're not selective, we don't know which one's going to inadvertently fall. It could be our clients, it could be our family, it could be us. I mean, I know a lot of the people that I work with experience burnout because they are working so hard.
Yep.
So I'm going to say, Kate Payne said, I do experience that, but working hard not to do that anymore. Love that, Kate. Love hearing it. And Emma, switching off is one of the hardest things to do as a solopreneur. Emma is dialing in from France, and she has 2 young boys in addition to running her own business. So Emma, thank you so much for showing up at this time. It's late. What time is it for you? It's 6 hours different. So it's dinner time.
Oh.
So thank you, Emma. I appreciate it. Where would someone start? Meaning, what are the things that they can start thinking about? I know you and I were discussing, just setting up the chart of accounts in your QuickBooks is so important. So at the end of the year, everything's filed where it should be. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's, I think it was an orange juice commercial like 10 years ago, and it stuck with me, but they said, put good in, get good out. And I tell people that with their finances all the time, because people can be doing them regularly. Everything is caught up. And then I go in because they just want eyes on, and I'll run like a profit and loss. And things aren't where they should be. And, some of that is a miscategorization. Some of that is, the account type, and I will not bore you with account types. But there is sometimes the people that worry me more than the ones that are forthcoming and just say, I know I need your help, are the ones that say, I'm all set. I'm all set. It's all caught up. I just need eyes on. And I have yet to, in my experience, open one of those and confirm that they are indeed all set. Because the people that truly are, if they're a bookkeeper, accountant, CPA, they're not the ones having me look at it. So, even if you do it yourself, even if you like doing it yourself, you want to do it yourself, I do think there's value in getting a regular checkup, just like you would with a doctor. I mean, you can do all the right things with your body. You can eat right and exercise and drink water, but you still go periodically and have a professional check you up and make sure that there's nothing that you can't see on the inside. And that's kind of the same with what I'm doing. It can look okay on the dashboard, but you dig in and you're like, ooh, you might want to look at that. And that's a big savings at the end of the year too, because your CPA will catch that. But your CPA is it's like the specialist that you don't have insurance for. They will charge you a lot more. I was trying to think of because they are still a professional, they will charge you a lot more to fix it, or they won't, or they will say, this is messed up, go have it fixed, because they don't like doing books. So,
I really like the analogy that you said, the financial health and our physical health. We do need to do the checkup. We do need to be aware, and both impact the other, right? I think
it's something that a lot of people don't know that they can do. They don't know that that's an option. And like I said, I don't know a lot of other bookkeeper situations and if they do that, but I have a bunch of colleagues. I have a lot of small business owner friends I'm so grateful for, that have hired me to do a quarterly or a monthly check-in. They're like, I'm going to do it all, and I just want your eyes on. And that way, if I need to catch something, I catch it timely when I remember what it is, and it's easy to fix. Again, medically, like the thing that you just let fester for, a year, and then now it's a big mess that you have to take care of. So
great. Thank you. So I noticed we're kind of coming up on the hour, and I have a couple more questions for you. What are some resources that people could look into and just start educating themselves on a little bit so they can feel comfortable to reach out?
Yeah. So specifically with bookkeeping, most software companies will have people who are certified in their software. So if you are using, I'll use QuickBooks Online just because they're the Google of the accounting world. But QuickBooks Online, you can go search for a pro advisor. Pro advisors are people who are certified. They have to get certified every year, recertify, every year, to make sure that they are familiar with best practices, all of the functionality, all the bells and whistles, how to use it, what to check. It's their credentials. You want to make sure, just like a doctor, not to make it sound like that, but you want to make sure that who you're working with knows what they're doing. Well, it is. And I've actually been paid to fix somebody else's bookkeeping snafu. They had hired somebody else and made a huge mess of it. And I felt really bad, but they brought me in to fix it. So you can have somebody that does more damage than not. So just like anything else, check whatever your software is, check their website. They will have somebody that's certified, or a listing of people who are certified in that platform. That's really important. Check those references. And I'm a huge believer in word of mouth. So ask your friends, ask around. If you've got colleagues, other business owners who use somebody, that's going to be your best bet, because then you've got real life experience. It's a little bit like a resume. Anybody can have a great resume and look good on paper. Right. And then, or even interview, they might interview really well, and then you hire them and you're like, is this the same person? It's kind of like that. So if you ask around to people that are using somebody, you'll get the real deal. You'll get, how do they communicate? Are they trustworthy? Have you been happy with their services? And again, for finances, CPAs can be good at recommending bookkeepers because they see it at the end of the year. They know it's clean. They know who they like and who they don't. But check those resources. But ask your friends. Sounds a little silly, but they're going to have real life experience. I'm like, I've worked with this person. Here was my experience.
Yeah, word of mouth is great. Excellent advice. Thank you. So are there any questions, Julie, that you would have asked yourself that I didn't ask you? Something someone should know?
think we kind of covered it earlier. I think the one thing that I would say makes me unique and is handy in that space is just the sort of versatility, the MacGyver-like thing where you can kind of plug and play and do things. Somebody that can come in, do the pieces that you want.
Okay,
That doesn't always come up. It did for us. So I think we covered it.
Okay. All right. Actually, I do have one more quick question.
Sure.
What are some myths within your industry that you might like to debunk?
I think the biggest one is just that and this is not even in my industry, but asking for help does not equate to weakness in any way. It doesn't mean that you are less than, not good at it. It doesn't even mean that you can't do it. It is okay for you to choose not to wear all the hats. This past year was interesting. I had 3 bookkeepers during COVID reach out and ask if they could either take one of my courses or work with me directly. And, it was really humbling for them, but you have to realize when you don't know what you don't know. At least it was you that told me that even coaches have coaches. It doesn't mean that you're not great at what you do, but everybody needs help. And so I would say don't struggle longer than you have to. Get the help. And that goes in any industry.
I like what you just said. And I really want to highlight that Julie, while she is a virtual CFO, she does take care of so many amazing things. Julie also offers courses. So you can get a course and learn QuickBooks and whatnot at your own pace. She's got many different offerings, which leads me to where can people find you, Julie, if they want to reach out, whether your website or social media?
So definitely my website. It's actually in the middle of a rebrand right now, but it's still functioning and has contact info on there. And you can find me on LinkedIn, or I have a Facebook page. I mean, I'm all over the place.
And I will, yes, I cannot wait to see your new branding. I'm super, super excited. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. If you have any more questions, pop them in the chat. I do want to mention that next week I have Loran Starr, who is a diversity and inclusion psychologist. Can't wait to chat with her next week. It's the 21st at noon Eastern. She's going to be talking about, and I love her breakdown, inclusion plus diversity equals equity. Right? I love that. So we're going to be talking all about that next week. Please be sure to join us. And any questions that anyone else would like to, James Tucker says, totally agree. Don't be afraid to ask for help. So important. So thank you everyone for joining us. I really appreciate it. Julie, you are so generous to share your time, share your brilliance. If anyone has any questions, reach out to Julie, please. Maybe on February 1st, because she's cleaning up lots of books, finishing up lots of books for all sorts of people. So thank you very much, Michelle. I appreciate you joining. And thank you, Emma. Everyone have a phenomenal week, and we will see you next week. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Bye.